Awesome.
Okay, slide.
Cool. So can I start the workshop?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, cool. All right. What's up, guys? My name is Cristina. I am a second-year PhD student here at Stony Brook, and I study computer vision. But today I'm going to be leading this workshop on web scraping and text analysis, and hopefully it'll come in handy as you're working on your hacks for HackHealth. So what is web scraping and why is it useful? Well, there's a lot of public information on the internet, and you might want to include this information in your application. You might want to display it to your users in a nice and convenient way, and help them improve their health that way. So web scraping involves retrieving information from a given URL, extracting the information that you want using some text analysis methods, and then organizing it and visualizing it in a way that's helpful for your users. So the first disclaimer that I want to talk about is that you should only scrape websites that allow it. Some websites don't want you to scrape them because whenever you send a request to a server, to the host of the website, and you want to get some information from that URL, you are basically loading the page. And every time you do that, this costs the owner resources. So if you're sending thousands of requests a second, that's probably going to overload the server depending on how big the website is. And that's not going to be good for the owner of the website. The way that you can check whether or not a website will allow scraping is by looking at their terms and conditions page. And then if they have any explicit rules regarding scraping, you should just follow that. Usually it'll say something like there'll be a terms of use section to their terms and conditions page, and you should look for something like that. Another thing that you can do to check what part of a website you're allowed to scrape is by adding the /robots.txt to the end of the URL you want to scrape. And I'm going to show you guys what that would look like on an average website and how you would read that information. So the way that this workshop is going to go is that we'll first go through an example of a web scraping together, and you can look at all of the code that's involved in this at this repository. And then we're working independently, or if you want to work in your HackHealth team, we'll choose some websites that you want to scrape. And then if you guys have any questions on how to do that with the URL that you chose, you can put it in the live stream chat. Although there is a delay of 20 seconds, so feel free to ask questions at any point in this presentation, but just know that the delay is going to be about 20 seconds. So hopefully that doesn't become too awkward if people have a lot of questions, but I have no problem going back answering whatever questions you guys might have. Cool. So a lot of things happened in 2020. I had a lot of free time. I think a lot of people had a lot of free time as they were not going out and hanging out with friends. So something that I got into was skincare. And so this example is going to be based around how you could rate your skincare products. Hopefully this is like a little relevant to the theme of HackHealth, since this is related to skincare health. But say that you want to rate some skincare product based on whether it uses good ingredients. Well, the problem is that there's usually tons of ingredients in skincare products, and it would take a lot of effort to research each of these ingredients manually. So ideally, what you would want is some application that could take in a list of ingredients in your skincare product and then give you some kind of rating based on information from a trusted source. So what we're going to go through is an example application where you can give it a list of ingredients, and then we're going to use this trusted source to get a rating for each ingredient, and then aggregate these individual ingredient ratings to create an overall score for the product. So the website that I'm going to use is it's called paulschoice.com. I used it for this because they actually have a super convenient ingredient dictionary where they take all of the ingredients that are typically used in skincare products, and then they rate each of them. They give some description and also categorize it. And I'll show you what this looks like in the code. But basically, the first step as we're doing this is to actually check whether or not we can scrape this website. So this is a screenshot of the terms and conditions for paulschoice.com. And I've highlighted this section in blue, which says that you can view and download material from the site for personal use. And since we're not trying to make any money off of this, and it's just for our personal use, we can scrape this website. Another thing to check is the robots.txt page. So you can see that there's this user agent star that means any user agent, and it's disallowing you to scrape these extensions. Since I'm looking at the ingredient dictionary and that's not disallowed, I can scrape this website. Okay, so something that's going to be useful as we're trying to scrape a website is the browser inspector. So I use Firefox. You might use Chrome, but in any case, the browser will have an inspector that you can use to look at how the website is structured. And we're going to be taking advantage of that to collect information from the website. So now let's take a look at the code. So hopefully you guys can see this Sublime page. So the first thing that you want is to narrow down what URL you want to scrape. In this case, we're going to be scraping this ingredient dictionary from Paula's Choice. And once you have this page, you use the requests module to collect the information from this page. So when you do this, when you run this request.get on a URL, that's what's actually going to ping the server and then retrieve the information. So once you've done that, it's going to have a status code. So what I'm doing in this line is I'm trying to check whether or not we have successfully gotten the information from the website. If it starts with a 4 or 5, then there was an error, and you need to debug that. But this is just checking that we've successfully loaded the page. So I'm going to go to this website, and I think I need to stop this. Okay. So this is the website that I'm trying to scrape. As you can see, it's got a list of all these ingredients, and then it's got like a rating and some information about each ingredient. So the way that I'm going to look at the information and source code on the page is I'm going to go to Tools. This is Firefox. Then I'm going to go to Web Developer, and then to Inspector. This is going to be a slightly different on Chrome, but it'll definitely have this capability. And here at the bottom, what we're seeing is like all the divs and containers for the website. So the information that I'm really interested in is contained in this main area. And you can see that as I'm going over as I'm going over this information, it's kind of getting highlighted, and then you can see where this information is in the source code. So for example, here, we've got
Could
this.
you make the text bigger so that people
Sorry?
can see? Could you make the text bigger
Oh,
so
sure.
that people can see? Thank you.
Okay, hopefully, yeah, let me know if this isn't large enough, but right now what I'm doing is, just to recap, I've got Inspector open, and I'm trying to figure out what part of the page that I'm scraping is there the information that I'm trying to extract. So in this ingredient dictionary, I want to extract all of these ingredients as well as their ratings and the description and some information about how it's categorized. And so I need to go into the source code for the website and find where that information is actually stored in the page. Because once I've requested the server to get the source code for the page, I'm going to need to look through that source code and then extract the information that's relevant for my application. So in this case, what we want is all of these ingredients, and it looks like they're contained in this section called call ingredient info. Okay, that sounds pretty promising. Like I'm looking for ingredients and information. And it seems like there's another thing called call rating, ingredient rating. Okay, that's corresponding to the rating section of this box. And then actually all of this is contained inside this class called ingredient result. And looking at how this page is structured, it seems like there's a bunch of these classes called ingredient result. And as I'm scrolling over them, these things are highlighting up. So the things that I actually want to extract is all of the information inside this class ingredient result. So when I go back to the code, what I'm going to try to extract is based on this class name. Okay, and the way I'm going to extract the information from this page in a way that's easier to use in Python is using Beautiful Soup. So Beautiful Soup is a module that you can install using pip. Just a disclaimer, if you're following along with the code and you want to, you don't have some of these modules installed, you can install them from this requirements.txt.
Could you also make the text bigger? Sorry.
Sure.
That one. Thank you.
Yeah. Awesome. So Beautiful Soup is really nice because it makes it easier to search through information that you get from this request call. So the documentation for Beautiful Soup is linked in these slides if you want to follow along. But basically, this documentation is really helpful because if you're trying to search for like a certain class name or a certain tag, you can do that using some calls. Like there's this find all call, which is very useful. And then you can also go through like the children or siblings to different parts of the HTML, and then use that to extract the information you want. So in our case, what I'm doing here is I'm just taking the content from the page. So I'm taking the source code, and then I'm actually parsing it using this Beautiful Soup parser. And what it's going to return is just like a beautiful soup object that you can then call these beautiful soup methods on to extract the information you want. So as we saw in the page that we're trying to scrape, we're looking for the information in this class called ingredient result. So once I've parsed the source code of the page into this beautiful soup object, what I'm going to do is I'm going to find all of the objects in the source code that are tagged ingredient result. And what that's going to return is whatever is inside here. And you can see that the actual rating for the ingredient is in this thing called ingredient rating. And then there's any information over here. This is good. And then there's also some other information, such as the ingredient name, that's going to be in this object called ingredient name. Some other stuff, there's the actual description, it's in something called ingredient description. So this is pretty, the names of the things I want are pretty straightforward. So going back to the actual code, I'm going to take all of that information that's going to be in this ingredient result, and then I'm going to actually extract the name, the rating, the category, as well as some description information. So the reason I have to do some extra work for the description is because this information isn't actually the full description. So if I go click on the ingredient,
someone asked, oh sorry, someone asked how or where do they download the libraries?
So we're working in Python, and I'm just working from the terminal. So you can do pip install, and then the name of the library. So if you look at the ingredients, requirements.txt, it has a list of modules. So in this case, we've got these 4 things that you can install using pip. So if you go to your terminal and then to pip install requests for all of these, so it would be something like that for each of these. And you can run that on your terminal, and it'll install these modules. Let me know if that wasn't clear, and I can actually show you how to do it in the terminal. Okay, moving on. The descriptions that I want for each of these ingredients are in a separate page. As you can see, some of these descriptions are not fully in this box, but what I can do is look at the page that's linked in this. So if I go to the ingredient name, that's actually the link is to this ingredient page is stored in this href that's under the class ingredient name. So to get the full description for the ingredient, what I need to do is actually go to this website and then extract the information from there.
Someone asked how do they do that? Oh, sorry. Someone asked how do they do that in Google Colab?
In Google, what?
Colab. Colab.
Oh, Colab.
Yeah.
I think to install something in Colab, you need to do like an exclamation point and then the command you want. So like I haven't used Collab in a while, but I think it would be something like this, pip install request. So this would be the command that you want to run in Collab, but I could be wrong. There should be a way to run terminal commands in Collab in a way that you would on just like any terminal. But if that didn't work, let me know, and we can look this up together. So the description isn't entirely necessary for this application that I want to write. In the end, what I want to do is have a rating for every ingredient and then aggregate those ratings together. But I just want the description because it might come in handy for my application at some point in the future. So what I'm trying to do in this script overall is just download all of the information from the website and then save. And then what I'm going to do is actually save it in a JSON so that I can then use it in a script later. And the way I'm going to store the information that I aggregate about the name, the rating, and so on is a pandas data frame. So pandas is typically used in like data science applications to store information. It's kind of like I don't want to call it like a Python dictionary, but it is a column and row format, and basically like a nice way to store tabled information. And you can save data frames as JSON files or CSVs. And so what I'm going to do is save the ingredient information into a pandas data frame and then load that information from a JSON file later. And you can see that what I'm doing in this loop is I'm going through all of the ingredient results class tags that I got from soup. And then I'm taking the name, rating, and so on from each of those objects, and I'm putting them into some Python lists. And then once I have a list where the order of each is corresponding to the same item, once I have all of that information, I am just creating a pandas data frame here, and then I'm mapping each of those lists to the name of that. So what this is going to look like when you open it in a JSON from a JSON file later is you're going to have a column named name, and then each row is going to correspond to an item. In this case, it's going to be like the names of the ingredients. And similarly, you have some column named description, categories, and rating. The things that we're most interested in are the name and the rating of the ingredients. And once I have created this data frame, then here I'm saving it to a JSON file called allingredients.json. I actually did this earlier, and then I saved the JSON file, and it should be in the GitHub repository. So you can open that up and check it out and see how the information is stored there. But I kind of want to pause here and ask about if there are any questions about what's happening in the script. It's not very long, but it's pretty dense. And some of these details, like you do have to be careful about how you're parsing for the text. So you can see that I've got these .script calls. So once you're looking through the beautiful soup object and you're finding the information that's stored in this class, you can extract the text that's stored in that HTML object but then I'm stripping it to get rid of like extra spaces or new lines and stuff like that. So there is some like text cleaning involved, but like here I'm just using native Python string calls. Yeah, if you have any questions about the script and how I'm parsing it here, how I'm parsing the source code here, feel free to put a question in the chat and I'll go back to it. But now that I have this ingredients JSON where all of the information is stored, then I can actually use the information that I've taken from the website and write something that'll rate ingredient information. Okay, so now I'm in rate product.py, which is actually going to take a list of ingredients and then produce some rating for that list. In this case, I've already added this list. This is a very long string, and as you can see, there's some ingredients. Well, the first one is water, but the second one, I don't even think I can pronounce that. And yeah, it would take me a really long time to figure out whether each of these is like okay for my skin. So I'm just going to write this script that can give me some rating for this list based on the individual ratings. The first thing I'm doing is I'm splitting up the list based on the ingredient separators. And then I'm going to read the information that I had saved in this ingredients JSON that I created earlier. And then what I'm going to do is get the rating for every ingredient in this list, and then I have written a function that I'll go over that gets the rating from the JSON, and then I'm just going to produce an average rating for the product. So in this case, what I'm doing is I'm first passing in the pandas data frame that I got from the JSON, and then this is going to be the name of the ingredient that I want to look up the information for. And I'm doing some string matching here. So here in this line, we're looking through the column in the data frame called name. And then what I'm trying to get is the rating for this ingredient. You can see that I'm checking for the ingredient, and then I'm also like taking if the ingredient doesn't exist with the uppercase, I'm just gonna send it to lowercase and then check again. There's still some string cleaning that you might have to do depending on the information that you're scraping, but it's gonna depend on how the information was stored on the website. So you might have to do a little bit of work in that sense to clean the text that you're looking for. But initially, the ratings for each ingredient were stored as a textual rating. So on the website, they have like good, poor, best. They also have average. So what I've done is I've converted each of those to a number from 0 to 3, where poor is 0 and 3 is going to be best. And then eventually I'm going to like take the average of all of those. And then when I run this script, so this is the result. This is just the list that I actually inputted. And then I've also made a note of when it could not find an ingredient in the database. I think some of these might be in the database, but there's still some like issues I need to clean with. I need to clean the text a little bit more to resolve some of these issues. but it does give me a rating in the end, and it says it's 2.2, which, you know, considering that best is 3, then maybe this ingredient list is not that bad, and it's got some reasonable ingredients in it. But but there's more that you could do. I mean, just because something has like a good ingredient and it doesn't mean that it's good. Maybe you want to aggregate things based on where the ingredient is placed in the list. So like when there's more of a certain ingredient, it's going to be at the front of the list, and that it's going to have more of an effect on you. So there's different things that you can do, but that basically concludes this example. I think the most general parts are going to be in scrapeingredients.py, where it's actually going through and using the beautiful soup methods to extract information from a web page. So now I'm going to go back into the presentation, and I'm going to show you guys. So there's 2 websites that I've put here that you could try scraping yourself. So I think we have half an hour left in the workshop. And I was hoping that we could do something that's a little bit more interactive, where you guys could choose either one of these websites or a website that you might have in mind that you want to scrape. And then we could go through how to scrape each of these. But first, I want to ask if there are any questions about the example that I just went through. If there aren't, then I'm going to start going through these websites and show you how you could approach scraping these. So let's click on this weather website. All right, so this is the National Weather Service, and as you can see, I've already gone to the location at Sunnybrook. So there's a lot of information here, and maybe what you would want is to see this detailed forecast. Like maybe you want to extract what the weather is going to be either today or later tonight in your application. So the way that you could start, first, we kind of need to check whether or not we can really scrape this website. So what you would do is go down to the bottom of the page and then find out whether or not they have a terms and conditions page with some information on whether you could scrape it. Okay. Do not see a terms and conditions page. Okay, next thing you might want to check is the main website. Doesn't look like they really have any terms and conditions page here. Okay. The next thing I want to check is the robots.txt, which they don't have. Considering that I got this from a tutorial on how to scrape websites, then it's probably fair game, but just to make sure, I'm going to go through some of these links at the bottom. Okay, cool. So here we've got this disclaimer. And okay, so they have some explicit rules on how you can use their website. So it's worth it to take a look at this. And it seems like they're okay with you scraping their website as long as you don't do it too often. Okay, cool. So let's go ahead and see what we want from that page. So what I'm going to do is going to Tools, going to open the inspector, and then I'm going to find out what part of the website this is. Okay, so this is taking me to this thing called forecast text. Okay, so that's in something called detailed forecast body. That sounds promising. So this has all of the information about the detailed forecast. Okay, and the actual information is in this thing called forecast text. Okay, and that's like right next to something called today, that's in forecast label. Okay, so the information I would want is going to be in this forecast text object. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the URL. I'm going to go into Python, import requests, and then I'm going to take the information from this page by doing this request.get. And it's taking a while. Okay, cool. So let's look at whether or not this loaded correctly. So I'm taking this output from the request.get, I called it page, and then I'm going to look at the status code. 200, that means it loaded fine. Let's actually print what is inside this. Okay, it's a bunch of
asked to manually check where the info is located before extracting it.
Manually check where the what is located?
The information.
Yes. Yeah, so that's what I'm doing. You need to, if you know ahead of time how the website is structured and where the information is, then you can, go ahead with that. But if I'm just going to a random website and I need to figure out like the information that I want specifically from there, then I do need to go into the inspector and check where that information is stored in the source code of the page. If you were writing a web scraper that's just going to do this for like thousands of websites, then you would, it would be more complicated. Like you would probably have to do some like regular expression matching, and it would really depend on like what information you're trying to collect. But if you have a specific website and you're writing an application that like needs something pretty specific from there, then it's pretty straightforward to go into inspector and look for the information that you want. Let me know if that didn't answer your question. So yeah, so I right now I've just printed out the information that I got from the request. And it's pretty messy. So what I'm going to do is import beautiful soup. I think it's from import soup. Okay, cool. And then the way that, actually forgot the command, but the way that you would parse this is using this line. I'm just going to create a beautiful soup object. You can print it. And you can see that it took that big messy thing and then it kind of organized it for us. So we've got these like HTML, these HTML tags that are on each line. But it's still kind of like there's a lot of stuff in there. But what I wanted was this information for the forecast for today. And that's going to be something in something called forecast text that's in one of these forecast rows that's in this forecast body. So what we're going to need to do is go into this beautiful soup object and then find the appropriate piece of text. So this find all call and in beautiful soup is really, really handy. So what this is doing here is it's trying to find all of the tags that are called ingredient result. In our case, we want to, well, first we want to look in forecast body, but what we really want is this forecast text. So I'm going to try see what would happen if I look for forecast text. Okay, nothing. Okay, what about real forecast? Okay, so this isn't actually, this is a div class. Let's see what happens if I look in for detailed forecast bodies. Okay. Probably a way to look for specific class. Yeah, I mean, so right now I'm just trying to go through and get this information, but if there's any, if you guys are checking out your own websites and you have any questions, let me know and we can like troubleshoot that together. It might be better than me just like struggling with this this one example. Yeah, if there are any questions, let me know. Okay, do people want me to continue with this example, or is there something that people want me to go over in the previous example, or maybe in like another link? Okay, if there isn't, if there aren't any other questions, then I'm just going to go ahead and push forward with this example. But if there is any questions, then let me know and we'll try to figure it out together. Okay, so So what we really want here is this, first we want to get this detailed forecast body that's in something called panel body. So these are actually divs, and they have a certain ID. So there should be a way to get information from a div from Beautiful Soup. Okay. So, now we're getting to a list of functions. Okay. Find text by ID. We'll see what happens if we use this. Cool. So what this did was it selected this div based on this ID. And this basically took like all the information that was in this specific div, this body. But what we want is not just all of that information. What we want is more specifically the text from today. So
Cristina?
Yeah.
Someone asked, what are you going to do with the weather data?
You could write an application that would just display it. So maybe your application is like you have an app for runners, and runners need to decide whether or not it's a good idea to go running. So right now I'm just trying to like extract this information, and maybe in my application I'll display it in a way that's like convenient or easy to use, that people don't have to like don't have to go to this website on their own. Maybe you could even have like a recommendation, like, is it a good idea or a bad idea to go running today? Well, it's a good idea because it's not going to snow, or like it's going to be nice out. Yeah, so there isn't, not really going anywhere with this. I was just trying to show another example of how you might want to like go through the website, go through the source code, find what sections of the source code you want to extract data from, and then whatever you do with that information is going to depend on your application. But this is the way the information that I've just extracted is, it varies slightly from the way I did it in the previous application. Like in the other website, the information I wanted was in this tag item, whereas here it's in a div. So depending on where it is in the source code, you're going to have to access it in a different way. And yeah, you could just use Beautiful Soup functions to find the information based on the tag ID or the div ID and so on. Are there any other questions about how you could use Beautiful Soup, or if there are also like logistics questions, like, oh, how would you built an application that could scrape multiple websites. Although we kind of did that in the skincare example. Something that I think is helpful to keep in mind is this request cache. I didn't use it in the examples so far, but I think this is something that's really useful because you don't necessarily want to scrape websites. Like you don't want to make like thousands of calls to the same website every second if lots of people are using your application, or you're just extracting like the same information every time. You could cache the information that you get from the page, and this is great for both you and the server because you don't have to wait as long for the server to respond with the information. So you've got it cached, and it also decreases the load on the server. And as we saw earlier, servers might have different policies. Like you can only scrape this website like once every second or every 6 seconds or something like that. And you could use this request cache and yeah, use this line install cache to actually save the information that you get from requests. Yeah, another good practice is to insert some wait times in between your requests. So you could have some manual like 100 millisecond wait before you call requests again to limit the amount of requests you're sending to a server. So that's also just like a best practice. Are there any other questions before we wrap up? This is basically like what I wanted to go over. I hope that all this information was useful. I think it's honestly a lot of fun to go through websites and be able to take information from them for your own application. And you know, the skincare example wasn't really like for anyone except myself, but maybe there's something in your life that you're just too lazy to go on the internet to search for, and you could end up using this beautiful soup to help you like get that information without you actually looking through websites.
Yeah, just wait a few more minutes for any last minute questions.
Sure. Gonna like, I guess, finish this up. So I was looking for, okay. I don't know if this is gonna work, but oh, okay, so this is a list object. So let's see what's in the first item. What is that type? Okay, it's a tag. So if it's a tag, then I think I can use this like find all. see. Okay. Okay, these are divs. Okay.
Looks like so far no one has any questions, but people are saying thank you for the information. It was pretty neat, super helpful, informative workshop. So thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you guys so much for having me and for listening to this presentation. Hopefully it was useful. Definitely let me know if you have any feedback. Yeah, thank you.
And thanks so much for hosting.